Hello everyone. In this video we are going to discuss about Dow Jones Index and its performance in past 125 years. It's been a while that Dow Jones is active. It is one of the oldest index that is still getting traded. Though this is not the oldest index that's been there in US, but still there are some reasons we are discussing about Dow Jones today. Also in this video, we're going to decode what the history lies within, and also we'll try to read what the chart says about the history and the event that happened in the past. We will also like to discuss and see the S&P 500 index. Maybe there are some more issues or points that we can learn from it. We will also going to see the 1930 depression and what the chart says about it. Well, there are some surprises that you might know and there are a few which you don't know. In the end, we're also going to see the period of Cold War where nothing has happened for about 20 years. Let's start. Let's say the Dow Jones. The chart itself has been there in TradingView, and we can see here that you can see a big chart starting from 1897, and still today it's going up. If you see down, it looks like it's a straight line till maybe 1980s. That's not the case. In this video, we're going to see the history of Dow Jones. We'll also go to TradingView and see how it has performed in early 1900th century. The history itself says that the bigger company of US has been part of Dow Jones, and the performance kind of reflect what US economy at that moment the world economy was been performing. If we see about S&P 500, that has been started I think 20-30 years ago Dow Jones, but before 1950 S&P 500 was not being a tradable index. So we may not be able to identify the reasons uh, of World War or the early depression time, what has happened in the world. Hence, S&P 500 is not a best index for us for this review. World War wise, we will also go deep in the chart and we'll see what has happened during World War One and World War Two, and we'll try to see were there any evidence suggesting what really went wrong. Does the market predicted the war before? The Cold War was a very interesting period in Dow Jones chart reading. Normally, the Cold War means that there's no war happened, but in reality, it was not the case. We will have a dedicated discussion about it later on. The Great Depression is a period which, in books, it says it started at 1930, but in my reading, I feel that it's not the time when it has started, but the roots were there much before it had started. In this chart, you can see that from 1897, the Dow Jones had started going up. It then has a kind of a bullish run, which has majorly started from 1920 or 24. And within 6 years, the index, which was about 80 that time, has gone till 360 or 400, which is like a 5 times jump within 4 or 5 years. Does it make sense? What really has changed in those time in US? Actually, nothing. So the whole world just see the period from 1930 till maybe 1933, 1934, and says that okay, there's a great fall, great depression. And actually, that's not the case. It's being says that the index has gone up much more than it's intended to. It may be a false bull run, and hence it has fallen down. Though there can be more reasons, we'll try to analyze it in the chart. The up and down movement in the chart in early 1950s not always explain the reasons of the stock market or the world war. But there are a few things that I wanted to show you on the chart. In the chart, you may see here now that this is a bigger time frame, 1 month, and it started from 1897. This is the period which I just described on the presentation, that the stock was going up till 336. You may say it is about 386. And then it has fallen down till about 50. If we check the details of it, we'll get to know that the 50 is nothing but the average of the Dow index when it started. So you may say that all the activities and all the energy that it has earned in past 35 years has been washed away with this run. And thereafter, there's a period which you may say started from 1930 and it has lasted maybe till 1954. So there's a period of 20 years which has not been able to break the last high that this bull run has made. But if we try to also see this particular period, which may have lasted till 1945, this still will be considered as a consolidated period. So nothing has happened, but still depression effect and the later effects can be seen here. It's more like a flood. So this is the time when the rain happened. This is the moment when the flood happened, and thereafter, once it is went away, there are more diseases. So the after effect of this particular event can be felt for another 20 years. So can we say that this was a depression? Well, if we will skip this particular period, which has started from 1924 till 1929-30, if this has never happened, then this would not be considered as a depression period at all. It's like the world has actually believed that we're going up, but it came down and it stays where it was being there before World War. So nothing has happened. In my opinion, this is an expectation of greed, which have seen the reality and then had a fear, and then it has been working and living in the era of reality. Well, that's my opinion. Coming back, the great period that no one talks about. The great period that no one talks about. That's what I just shown you. The period which has been started in 1920s and it goes to 1930. So what could have happened? Well, in this today's world, we have no evidence to prove that. But in my opinion, after World War One, when the allies of US and US itself has won the war, the market itself has suited up. And those moments, the world was not like someone win the war and you started trading the next day. It takes time. So there are major development happening. Maybe more industrialization was happening in that period because the world believed that there is no more war in the world, and that's the reason it was going up. But very soon it has seen the reality. So it has come down. The depression period itself lasted for 20 years for me, if not 10 years. But well, it's just because it has gone unconditionally up. That's why it has come down also. The next 25 years, as I've shown in the chart, was very depressing. But still, there was some key points that we have learned from this discussion. The World War period was very interesting for me to learn. When I was going in detail, I was being able to find that in World War One and World War Two, there was no major impact on the chart. Maybe the world at moment was not get so much impacted, but still, there must be something on the chart that should be able to show us what has happened. As we know, the World War has happened between 1914 to 1919 as World War One, and then happened in 1939 to 1945 as World War Two. There is no comparison between these two world wars. There is no good or bad or justification for these wars. Wars are bad. But how did the Dow Jones or any big market that moment which get traded get affected from? Let's see on the trading view again. Well, if we again go and try to expand this monthly chart a bit more, we will be able to understand that the world was living on its linear ecospace that time. And the monthly chart actually have touched its 200 DMA in the period of 1914, 1913 and 1914. And this particular line has been tested a lot of time. So that's a period. If 200 DMA of a monthly get tested so much time, then normally it goes up. And that's what has happened. The World War One kind of have no impact. Well, it has started falling after 1919 when the war stopped. And one of the key reasons could be is that it was a bit more up. That distance between the monthly 200 and the price of the stock, the price of the index, was a bit more high than expected. Hence, it has to come down to retest it. So, in World War One, at least, we have no evidence to understand that the market really cares about it. This was a starting of a bull run. The bull run that has kind of impacted after Great Depression. But yeah, in this discussion, we do not find any solid evidence in World War One that it has any impact to. World War Two was a bit different. The world was facing the issues and the after effect of depression. Well, and when this second world war started, maybe the market was ready to go up, but since this world had started, it just there where it is was there. Here again, if we see, the bottom was being tested, and the bottom was being tested in 1938 before the World War, and it again get tested in 1942. I may just guess that those are the period where the US allies are the weakest or may have more issues. If the result of the war would be different than what has happened, then maybe from here on the market could have gone down. And that's the reason market was not been able to make a decision for that period. But very soon, or I would say before the end of the war itself, the market has made its mind that it's going up, and it was right. So the US allies has won the war, and this particular chart explains the same, that the indecisiveness of the World War II make the market move nowhere. Let's go ahead. Cold War period is most interesting topic for me when I was doing the research for this. People normally believe that after World War there was no war, but that's not the right thing. If we talk about the US context, mostly because we're talking about Dow Jones, the fight that US and USSR had was not only within Europe, but it has expanded outside. There was Vietnam War, there was Gulf War, there was indirect wars. There are more and more nuclear power generation war. They were just trying to make themselves strong. They're trying to make dominance. They're having a lot of external politics to break the other countries. So how it impacted? In my understanding, there is a period which has started after 1945, or when we say after UN has formed, when US market was going up because it understood that the World War II has stopped and there's no fear left anymore. Hence, the market, which were maybe around 200 to 300 dating at that moment, has gone till 900 within a period of 20 years or so. It looked like normal. In 20 years, it can grow maybe 5 times. And maybe the world knows that time that US is the only market which has democracy, which and it's also increasing its popularity. The bigger companies are coming. There are a lot of talent which is getting into US, more companies which are getting bigger and bigger. So there's a possibility that the bull run has started and continues till this moment. And I wanted to emphasize till this moment because even though there was a Cold War period, the US was having an edge always. Even the period after 1950 to 1970, where there's a whole hype that US and Russia were having a war on the space, they both are fighting to go to the space or the moon. Those all hype, or we can say the greed on the market, can be seen here. The people has believed the US market and it has gone up. But soon after a period or a threshold or a very far from a monthly DMA, it started believing that it need to settle down. I'm not an expert of US politics, but I must say that this is the period of 20 years where there are a lot of indecision happen in US. Maybe assassinations of former presidents, maybe war on Vietnam, or maybe there are some bankrupt issues of some bigger companies. There can be issues, and I'm pretty sure about it that this is the period where US has issues. It's also the period when Russia, sorry, that time USSR, were trying to take control over it. So there might be a time, if it's a race, if Cold War was a race, There might be a time when USSR are ahead and there might be a time when US are ahead. So this might be the period when USSR might be getting more opportunity. They're going much more ahead. So the rise that has started in 1947 in the chart after UN formation actually has lasted for 20 years. But then there's a no-way period started in late 1960 and it has lasted for about 15, 17 years. There's no conclusive evidence like why it happened, but it must have its impact. Also in the chart, we can say that the distance between the monthly DMA and the chart value, the peak value, was too high. And that's the reason it has to be there for some time so that the monthly DMA and the stock price can kind of have a consolidation period completed and then can prepare for another bull run. That's another thesis. But soon after 1980, we must say that the US stock market were again ready and Dow Jones was also ready. This is also the period when USSR were losing its grip and the market itself was believing that the US market is or the US is the only superpower which will going to rule the old world. And that's the starting of the new beginning. Once the Cold War has stopped, USSR has been split into multiple countries. There's only one superpower left. And the whole money in the whole world then have only one choice and they're very happy about it because it's a democracy who has won. So the new, at least on the chart, the new beginning has started in 1983, much before USSR has broke down. If we go on the chart and try to see that, well, this is the period which I have just explained, and this is the indecisiveness of the period. I zoom out a bit. You might be able to see that after a certain time, like early 1980, the bull market has started again, and it really doesn't wait for the Cold War to end. It just been on the bull run much before that, and that's the truth. That was the day, or I would say this is the most important period when US market was actually struggling. And from there, the 1000 index now has become 36, 31,000 index. So it's 30 times within 35 years. It's crazy. So what's the conclusion I can make on the Dow Jones? Well, it's the old historical data, but it has its own lifeline. It has seen the life of World War One, World War Two, the Nazi period, the Cold War, the walk on the moon, and various other wars which has been run within and outside of US. But one conclusion that I can make is that the monthly chart is the best way to do a time travel and understand what has happened. Fortunately, we have a legacy which we can go back and we can see it. Maybe if you know a certain event that has happened maybe on a certain year, like 1945, you may just go on the chart and you can see what really has happened. So for me, that's the best way to do a chart reading. We also get to know that the Dow Jones is going up and was being able to beat USSR, and that's the only reason there's only one superpower left. And the period after 1980 till 2020, the period when USA just ruled the world. That has been seen on the Dow Jones chart itself. Well, the best is over. That's a topic for some day later. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.